welcoming you to our YouTube channel on Southern Soul Sports. And I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Beats from the hotboxfm.com, and we'll be talking about Southern Soul Sports. And we want to shout out to each and every one of you last week that really checked out our Southern Soul Sports report. It's very unique. No one is doing Southern Soul Sports on the internet but EZP and Matt Beats. So we can give ourselves a round of applause and we'll say this. Don't miss the Southern Soul House Party hosted by OC Soul with Earl Z. Pearl and Shell in the evenings every Monday on SouthernSoulATLFM.com. Yes, it's good to be with y'all. We're going to be talking about the salary cap, and we have a surprise for Atlanta Falcons fans. So I'm going to bring in my co-host right now, Mac Beats. Welcome, Mac Beats.
Hey. I hated this salary cap as soon as I heard about it.
Everybody went crazy when they found out that you proposed something unique that has never been proposed on YouTube, that the owners have a earnings cap.
Yes, they need to have an earnings cap.
You did that. So tell us what you mean about that, Mac Beats.
Every time they get a check for ratings, because they get super checks for ratings, every time they get a check for a ticket, a check for some clothes, somebody bought a jersey, a cap, the players don't get most of that money. That money goes to a pool. So when we were buying those jerseys, those Kaepernick jerseys and those Michael Vick jerseys and those Joe Mixon jerseys, they weren't really getting the money. That money was being took and chopped up between 8 or 9 people. Like they do the artists with the 360 deals, and maybe Kaepernick got a couple of dollars after you done put in $300 on one of those jerseys. So I'm saying we need to go ahead and put a cap on all of these owners. The team owners need to have an earnings cap so we can bring back balance and make sure the game stays balanced. If we got a cap on the players.
I agree with you, and I want you to come back in and give us that additional information. I just want you guys to know that the 2024 salary cap for the NFL is $255 million. And it was established, the salary cap was established in 1994. Of course, the NBA was the first organization to establish a cap in America in the 1984-85 season. And we were talking about that earlier, Mac Beats, and I want you to come in and let us know about this, because Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and maybe even Julius Erving, Dr. J, as well as Karl Malone, the mailman, John Stockton, all of those guys were having outstanding seasons in 1984, 1985. And I think that they were going to have to almost give the league away to pay those people. So it made sense from an owner's perspective to cap those salaries, but nobody ever talks about the owners having an earning cap.
They really need one because they're able to make all types of money sitting in a suit in a box, writing letters and numbers down on a piece of paper and just walking off cool. And see, the players, especially in the football league, they wind up with all these injuries. And even if they don't have any injuries, they wind up with parts that have been hit over and over and over again for hours at a time in practice and in the real games. You've seen those hits. Ugh. Just one of those is enough to put somebody on a sling for a minute. Now imagine over and over and over again. Imagine the knees. So the players don't have what the factory workers used to have back in the days, a pension as far as ownership. A lot of them don't get a pension. And a lot of the limitations with the players, as far as especially as basketball and football, are kind of like the limitations that are placed on workers with the minimum wage. There's a reason why the federal minimum wage hasn't went up. And it's because the owners don't want it to go up. When I say owners, most people know who I'm talking about, the business owners that depend on super low minimum wages to be able to operate their businesses and pay the CEOs. The same thing is going with basketball, football, and in baseball. They're getting people, these young men, to have a salary cap. So that way, somebody in Florida can't say, oh, I want them for $255 million for 4 years. And then somebody in California says, no, I want them for $258 million for 3 years. So the power play doesn't happen for the player. It has to happen for the owner if there's a salary cap. But whenever we buy tickets, whenever we watch the game, whenever we do any of the things that profit a team, the owners get the first cut. And it should really be more balanced because the owners can be an owner and never have a physical injury because they don't have to play. They can stand out there with clipboards just to look important. Does that sound familiar? While the players are running back and forth on the field, the owners in the field. Can anybody hear what I'm saying? So there needs to be a power balance that works in the favor of the players. So that the players can come into the league making their worth because there's an even deeper cap on the rookies. The rookies have a far lower cap than someone who's been playing 5 and 6 and 7 years. And that is almost criminal. That's the worst thing because these are young men who have been doing this since they were in 6th, 5th, and 4th grade. This is the only thing they wanted to do. They spent their whole lives building this skill and the hype. A lot of times their parents have to bring money together, scrape money together to pay videographers and pay editors to put together a real good video promo for them to get the attention of a scout and build hype. And they have to go to journalists and build hype and get in the papers and blogs and all that just to build up to be able to do it. And then you put a salary cap on it. That is terrible because now this young 17, 18, 19-year-old gets to enjoy all the trappings of injuries of athletic work, but not the unlimited potential for this work that he's doing. That's why if we're going to have, we either need to take away the cap on the players or we need to add one to the owners.
This is very unique. This is a very unique principle for Matt Beats. You haven't heard this anywhere exclusively right here, Southern Soul Sports. EZP. You have not heard this anywhere. Tune in, turn on, tell a friend, and subscribe. If you're seeing this video, you know you haven't heard this anywhere. Go ahead and subscribe, like, and comment. Okay? Do it. Because this needs to get out to our NFL players. It needs to be announced to many people who are sports fans because the players deserve the money. All that TV money, is extraordinary. They signed a $1 billion deal. It's worth billions of dollars to 3 networks. And one of them is NBC, the other one is ABC. And so it's billions of dollars that are on the line. And I think the players should get a little more of that, Matt Beats.
Really? You're talking about billions and millions of dollars. And guess what? You're going to love this. The league doesn't pay taxes.
What?
But you know who does pay taxes?
The
players.
do.
Oh, those players pay taxes. Oh, yeah. 40%, 50% off the top. Like a haircut. Like a shape-up.
I'm laughing, but it's serious.
Gone. The owners don't pay that. A lot of times when you're allowed to own an asset, the business that a person operates that, for example, can live in a separate country, or it can be operated in a separate country or a separate zone, or by a trust fund, can own an asset or a part of an asset like a team. Mm-hmm. So if an owner owns a business, and the business technically owns their share or their part of a team, and they do their taxes a certain way, the owners don't pay taxes. Oh, the only one paying taxes is the 19-year-old on the football field, basketball court, baseball court that's sustaining injuries and is doing all the work. Does that sound familiar? Somebody running back and forth on the field, doing all the work while somebody else gets all the money. The owner gets all the money. Does that sound familiar? Does that ring any bells for anybody out there in Southern Soul Land? Now I know my Mobile people can feel me. I know my Mississippi people feel me. And my Georgia people definitely feel me when I say that. So we gotta either get rid of the cap on the players, or we gotta put a cap on the owners.
Interesting concept, and we want to know what you feel. We want to know. Comment down below in the description, in the comment tree. Tell us what you think about this new concept that you haven't heard anywhere else. Southern Soul EZP. The owners of NFL teams need an earnings cap. Wow. The Falcons announced Tuesday that the owner and chairman Arthur M. Blank and former quarterback Matt Ryan have been chosen to join the organization's immortal ranks. There hasn't been in 15 years. The Falcons will induct 2 members of the Ring of Honor in the same season. So that's my surprise to you guys. Arthur Blank and Matt Ryan are going in the Ring of Honor for Falcons fans. And there hasn't been a 2-person class since 2008 when Mike Ken and Claude Humphreys were inducted. There hasn't been anyone nominated in general since 2022. Currently, there are 12 members of the Falcons Ring of Honor, with offensive lineman Todd McClure earning the most recent honor. Blank and Ryan will bring the count to 14 once officially inducted. And on behalf of the Atlanta Falcons, it's a privilege to recognize 2 of our franchise icons as they enter our Ring of Honor. Team President Greg Beatles said. And so I turned to Matt Beats, and it just seems like Arthur put himself in there. Matt Ryan, he deserves it. He deserves it. He performed. But
Matt
one of
Ryan
the
has a tendency to really play like a quarterback, a classic quarterback.
I'd like to say Michael Vick should have been in, but because of dog fighting. Was that fair, Mac Beats?
See, I have dogs, and I love dogs, but I can tell you that he wasn't even there when that was going on. Those were his cousins. That whole investigation started from a murder investigation. That's not even what they were looking for. They just happened to find it. And since it was on his property and he was famous, guess what? Boom. They got him for that. And the reason that was so important and so necessary is just out of sheer shame and racism. And I say racism because there's another gentleman who played the entire 15-year stretch that was, assaulting women in bathrooms left and right like it was eating candy. But let's stick off of that subject because I don't want to throw racism everywhere. But I can tell you that they brought that up every time they mentioned Mike Vick when he was on the Jets, before he got on the Jets, and after he left. They didn't stop mentioning that until Michael Vick started barking. Like, they kept bringing that up. And they never brought up the sexual assaults that Mr. Roethlisberger perpetrated a couple of times. They didn't bring those up when they mentioned his name. If you had watched some of his games, you would never know what happened. But when Vick got back, oh yeah, they made sure to mention that. Every time he threw the ball, mention it. Dropped the ball, mention it. Looked at the ball, mention it. Because he's sitting on the sidelines. Let's talk about it again. Let's talk about some dogs. I have dogs. Like I said, I'm an animal lover. But I think after you get done and you serve your sentence, I think that's it. I think that should be the end of it. And I think that Mike Vick was a dynamic player. He could throw the ball 30 yards, 40 yards, 100 yards, and then he can get out there and run with you. But with Matt Ryan, what he did was he wanted to sit in the pocket and throw the ball, which was beautiful. That's wonderful. That's good. Except when he sees somebody coming, he'll do a backflip and land on the turf. But that's his way of staying healthy. What I will say is, attendance-wise, Matt Ryan was solid. He was always there because he wasn't getting hit too often. He was, he didn't scramble, he didn't run. If somebody got to him too close or looked like they were about 3 or 4 yards away, he hit that classic tuck and roll. He didn't fumble too much either because of that. Because you got to get hit to fumble most of the time. But I'm glad he didn't take too much punishment to mess up his attendance. That was one of his strong points. That and his accuracy. He had really good accuracy.
I can easily say that that Michael Vick was the most dynamic Falcon in Atlanta Falcons history. He was the most dynamic. He turned the whole league around and brought in the mobile quarterback mandate that we see today. And so for him not to be able to be eligible for the Ring of Honor, I just think it's a travesty. And I think it needs to be relooked. The dominant society says to us that because he was busted or convicted of fighting dogs, that he should not be in the Ring of Honor for his football play. I just think it's a travesty of justice. Blank acquired the Falcons in 2002 and ushered an era of unprecedented success. Prior to Blank's arrival, the Falcons had never achieved back-to-back winning seasons, a feat they've achieved 5 times since. Under the leadership, the team has compiled a 178-176 tied one regular season record with 8 playoff showings, including appearances in 2 NFC championship games and 1 Super Bowl. So that's outstanding. We'll give a round of applause for that. However, I think that we need to relook the Michael Vick situation. Of course, he's a commentator on Fox Sports, and of course, many people can't get on the Mike Vick bandwagon because they'll lose their jobs. And so I do understand it is a dominant society thing, but I still believe that he's the most dynamic player in Falcons history, Mac. And so we have concluded another edition of Southern Soul Sports. Southern Soul, EZP. And we really appreciate you, and we'll see you next week.